something like sanity. It was a state the boy had not seen in some time. The young one slipped closer, in and out of shadow now, visible in glimpses even to human eyes, and audible too. A strange, low keening issued from between his lips. This was not the savage predator of legend, capable and cruel, but a half-starved child with no master to tend him, no family to help him, no one to lean on for information or even succor. Stumbling through the night all alone, Mircea knew that feeling. He had entered this strange life through an old woman's curse, and hadn't understood what was happening when his skin started to burn in sunlight, when his food became oddly flavorless, when his eyes seemed to acquire a cat's vision, suddenly able to see clearly even in the dead of night. Not until his enemies caught up with him, tortured and buried him, leaving him to gasp his last breath in that tiny coffin underground, had he understood, and clawed his way back to the surface in a rebirth of sorts, as terrified and disoriented as a babe, and as ignorant of the new world he found himself in. Yes, he understood. He didn't know this one's story, only that he wouldn't be on his own, crying in need, if he had a family to look after him. So he was one of the thousands who washed up on these shores every year, unwanted, abandoned, lost, made by mistake, on a whim or as punishment for an infraction, and then cast aside to die alone. Because vampire death was something of a Venice specialty. But before they died, they hunted. And ones like these hunted wildly, so driven by hunger that they no longer cared for their own safety, much less that of their prey. And while the Vampire Senate allowed them the right to feed here, on the massive festival crowds too drunk to know the difference, mangled corpses were treated seriously. Members of the City Watch, the special ones with the Medusa head armor and the Senate's backing, had a hunt of their own, rounding up those who killed when they fed and carrying them away to tiny prison cells, where they could scream themselves hoarse, or shred their hands battering warded walls that would never yield, and slowly starve surrounded by silence, as if they, too, had been buried alive. But that wouldn't happen here, because something else hunted tonight. When the trap sprang, it took place in an instant, almost too fast even for Mircea's eyes to follow. The boy leapt, with a strangled cry of defeat and desperation, as if he'd been holding himself back but could bear it no longer. The girl turned with a cry of her own, lips parted, eyes wide and frightened. The darkness surged around them. And the next thing Mircea knew, the girl was alone once more, her breathing rapid, her lips trembling slightly, one pale hand gripping her throat. Until the darkness whispered something that even Mircea couldn't hear, and she turned and stumbled away, walking hurriedly, almost drunkenly down the street, not a woman, but a trap, one that had been sprung and was now being deployed once more. Mircea waited, unmoving, unbreathing, as the girl and the strange dark shadow that followed her passed him by. And then he slipped out into the street, quiet as a breath of wind, and cloaked in a shadow of his own, and followed. Chapter 1. The truck was old Army issue, built back when even regular cars resembled tanks, and it could easily eat a Hummer for lunch and spit out the bolts. At least it could have in its prime. But the years had not been kind, resulting in it landing at Stan's Auto Emporium, a junkyard/car dealership in which it was often hard to tell the difference between the two types of merchandise. "It's as dependable as they come, Dory," Stan said, patting its rusty hood. He was a tiny man, 4 foot something, with the something being mostly chutzpah. "This truck is rugged." I crossed my arms. This truck passed rugged a long time ago. This truck couldn't find rugged with a map. This truck is, what's the phrase I'm looking for? A hunk of junk. "A hunk of junk you can afford, sweetheart." He had a point. "How much?" 200.